Welcome back to Stories of Guidance, where true stories and timeless lessons meet. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe and stay till the end, because today's story will touch your heart and remind you that true love doesn't always come wrapped in glamour or perfection. It often arrives quietly, humbly, and in ways we least expect. Our story begins with a young man named Daniel. He was 27, hardworking, and ambitious. Every morning, he woke before sunrise, dressed neatly, and left for his job at a small construction company on the edge of town. Daniel wasn't rich, but he was proud of what he had: his honesty, his small apartment, and his dreams. But like most dreamers, Daniel often thought about love. He imagined meeting someone beautiful and kind, someone who would share his life and make his simple world brighter. And so, one night, after scrolling endlessly through his phone, he joined an online chat group, a place where people from different cities talked about faith, family, and life. That's where he met her, Sophia. Her messages were soft, thoughtful, and filled with warmth. She wasn't like the others who talked only about money or fashion. She asked Daniel about his mother, about his work, and about what made him happy. He found himself smiling every time her name appeared on his screen. Weeks turned into months, and Daniel realized he was falling for someone he had never met. But in his heart, it felt real, more real than anything he'd known before. Sophia told him she lived in another city, a few hours away. She didn't share much about her family, only that life had been a little hard lately. Daniel respected that. Everyone had struggles, he thought. One evening, after another long day at work, Daniel sat on his couch, scrolling through their old messages. Then, unexpectedly, Sophia sent him a picture. She was breathtaking: long dark hair, bright eyes, and a smile that could melt the coldest heart. For a moment, Daniel just stared at the photo. She looked exactly like the kind of woman he had always dreamed of: graceful, elegant, and full of light. He typed, "You're even more beautiful than I imagined." She replied with a simple heart emoji, and then, "Maybe one day we'll meet in person." That night, Daniel barely slept. He imagined their first meeting, her stepping out of a taxi, wearing something simple yet stunning, smiling as she saw him waiting. He pictured taking her to his favorite cafe, walking with her by the riverside, maybe even holding her hand under the stars. He didn't know it yet, but fate had something very different planned. After months of chatting, Daniel finally gathered the courage to invite her to visit his town. He promised to cover her travel expenses and told her she could stay in a guesthouse near his apartment. To his surprise, she agreed. He spent the next few days preparing. He cleaned his home, bought flowers, even borrowed his friend's car to pick her up at the station. He wanted everything to be perfect. When the day finally came, Daniel was so nervous his hands trembled on the steering wheel. He reached the station early, pacing near the arrival gate, his eyes scanning every passenger that stepped off the bus. And then, he saw her. But not in the way he imagined. Sophia stepped off the bus slowly, wearing simple clothes, worn-out sneakers, a faded blue scarf, and a bag that looked old. Her hair was tied back loosely. She didn't carry makeup or jewelry. And behind her, she was pushing a wheelchair. In it sat an older woman, thin and frail, wrapped in a shawl. Daniel froze. Sophia saw him, smiled softly, and started walking toward him, still pushing the wheelchair. Daniel's heart pounded, not from excitement, but confusion. This wasn't what he had pictured. When she reached him, she said shyly, "Daniel." He nodded. "Yes." "Hi, Sophia." Her eyes sparkled for a brief second before looking down. "This is my mother," she said. "I couldn't leave her alone, so I brought her with me. I hope you don't mind." Her voice trembled slightly, as if afraid he would. Daniel swallowed, forcing a smile. "Of course not. It's fine." He helped them into the car, quietly placing their bags in the trunk. During the ride, Sophia's mother coughed weakly from the back seat. Sophia leaned over to comfort her, whispering softly, and Daniel caught a glimpse of something in her eyes: gentleness, deep and sincere. Still, his mind was filled with questions. Why didn't she tell him about this? Why did she bring her mother? And why did her clothes look so different from the photos? When they reached the guest house, Daniel helped her carry the wheelchair inside. It was small but clean. He left them there, saying he'd return in the evening for dinner. Back in his car, Daniel sighed heavily. He felt disappointed, ashamed even. He had expected glamour, beauty, and excitement, but instead found simplicity, poverty, and responsibility. That night, he didn't go back for dinner. He texted her instead, saying he wasn't feeling well. Sophia replied kindly, telling him to rest, and thanked him for helping her and her mother. For the next 2 days, Daniel avoided her messages. But something inside him kept stirring. Every time he saw her name, guilt pricked his heart. She hadn't done anything wrong. She had simply shown up as herself. Finally, on the 3rd day, he decided to see her again. He went to the guest house in the afternoon and knocked on the door. When she opened it, her face lit up with surprise. "Daniel, I thought you were still sick." He smiled faintly. "Feeling better now. Can I come in?" Inside, he noticed how neatly she had organized everything. The small table was covered with a clean cloth. A few wildflowers were placed in a jar, and her mother was sitting in the wheelchair by the window, reading a small book. Sophia offered him tea. As she poured, he noticed her hands, rough, with tiny scars on her fingers. He realized she wasn't someone who lived an easy life. She was someone who worked hard, who cared deeply, who had probably suffered more than she ever admitted. "Can I ask you something?" he said gently. She nodded. "The picture you sent me, it looked different." "You looked different." Sophia paused, then smiled faintly. "That picture was taken years ago, when I still had a good job and we lived in the city. But my father passed away, and everything changed. We lost our home, and my mother's health started to decline. I moved to a smaller town and began doing part-time work. I didn't want to burden you with my problems." Daniel lowered his eyes. Shame flooded through him. All this time, he had imagined she was pretending. But she wasn't pretending at all, she was surviving. Sophia continued softly, "When you invited me here, I almost said no. I knew I couldn't come alone. My mother depends on me for everything. But I wanted to see you. Not because of romance, but because you were kind to me when no one else was." Her words pierced his heart. He looked at her again, her simple clothes, her tired eyes, and yet, that quiet strength that shone through. And for the first time, Daniel saw her not as the woman in the photo, but as the woman in front of him, a daughter, a caretaker, a survivor. The next few days, he visited them often. He took them to a nearby park where Sophia's mother could enjoy the sunshine. He watched as Sophia pushed the wheelchair slowly, smiling every time her mother laughed. He began to see a beauty in her that no photograph could ever capture. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, they sat by the river. The sky glowed orange, and the sound of water filled the silence. Sophia turned to him and said quietly, "You don't have to feel sorry for me, Daniel. I know my life isn't easy. You deserve someone who can give you more." Daniel shook his head. "You're wrong. You've already given me more than I deserve." She looked at him, puzzled. "You taught me what love really means," he continued. "It's not about glamour or perfection. It's about caring, about sacrifice. About showing up when it's hard. You showed me that." Tears welled up in her eyes. For the first time, she reached out and held his hand. From that moment on, something changed between them. Daniel helped her find a small job in town so she could stay longer. He even arranged for her mother to receive free medical checkups through a local charity. Months passed. Daniel and Sophia grew closer, not through gifts or grand gestures, but through shared struggles and quiet moments of faith. They prayed together, laughed together, and dreamed together. One rainy evening, as they walked under a single umbrella, Daniel stopped suddenly and turned to her. "Sophia," he said softly, "I know life hasn't been easy for you. But I don't want to just watch you fight alone. I want to be beside you. Will you let me?" Her eyes widened in disbelief. "Daniel, are you sure?" He smiled. "More sure than I've ever been." Sophia broke into tears, unable to speak. She nodded silently, and Daniel wrapped his arm around her. In that moment, the rain didn't matter. The world seemed small and simple, just the two of them, standing together in love that was real, raw, and unshakable. Over the next year, Daniel and Sophia built a life together. They rented a small home and cared for her mother until her final days. Though grief visited them, it also left behind something precious: gratitude. Gratitude for love found not in beauty or wealth, but in compassion. Years later, when people asked Daniel how he met his wife, he would smile and say, "I dreamed of a glamorous girl, but God sent me someone better, a woman with a heart of gold and a wheelchair to push. He never forgot the day she arrived, not in glamour, but in truth. And Sophia never forgot the man who saw past her pain to the light inside her. Their story became a quiet lesson for everyone around them, that love is not about perfection, but about presence. It's not about what we have, but what we give. So if you're listening now, waiting for someone who fits your dream, remember Daniel and Sophia. Maybe the person meant for you won't come wrapped in beauty or wealth. Maybe they'll arrive carrying burdens, maybe even a wheelchair to push. But inside them, you might find the kind of love that changes everything. Because true love doesn't seek comfort, it seeks purpose. It's not found in perfection, but in two imperfect souls choosing to walk the same road, no matter how rough it gets. Thank you for watching Stories of Guidance. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who still believes in real love. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more inspiring stories that remind us of the beauty hidden in life's unexpected moments. Until next time, stay kind, stay humble, and keep believing that love always finds its way.